Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Amos, the 5th chapter. And as we go through this chapter, right, once again, we see that Amos is pretty much rebuking the Israelites of the northern kingdom, right, for their idolatry, for their wickedness, for their stiff-necked ways and refusing to turn to the Lord, right, and giving them the message, right, in which the Lord has for them, okay? And so this is Amos chapter 5, verse 1. Hear ye this word which I take up against you, even a lamentation, O house of Israel. The virgin of Israel is fallen, she shall no more rise. She is forsaken of her land, there is none to raise her up. And this is likened unto, once again, like a virgin, right? A delicate woman that has fallen to the ground and there's nobody there to actually give her help or lift her up, which is basically the Lord likening this lamentation as we're about to go into the nation of Israel, right, and what they're going to go through, or in particular here, the northern kingdom. Verse 3, for thus saith the Lord Yahweh, my God, Slakia. For thus saith the Lord Yahweh, the city that went out by 1,000 shall leave 100, and that which went forth by 100 shall leave 10 to the house of Israel. Which is to say, for example, if you send out 1,000 people to war, you're gonna have 100 only 100 come back. If you send out 100, you're only gonna have 10 come back, which is to say that the Lord is not gonna be with you. Okay, and as a result, you would suffer loss, you would suffer casualties. Okay, and this would also, right, be really supposed to be humbling to Israel, right, to show you that the things that you achieved, the benefits that you enjoyed, were not of you. All right, they were there so long as you obeyed the Heavenly Father. But here, as we see, the Lord is telling them, look, I did this, I did that. I warned you straight up. I told you not to do it. I brought certain calamities upon you that were supposed to give you a wake-up call, and yet you still are continuing in these wicked ways. And it should be no surprise, right? Because you see the same thing today. Same thing today. It's the warnings fall on deaf ears. Okay, so if you're wondering, how is it that you got prophets right there telling them exactly what the Lord said they shouldn't do, and they're literally continuing to do that and worse? Look around you today. You'll see the exact same thing. Okay, so it's the same thing they dealt with back then, and it's the same thing we're dealing with now. And a good portion of that is because they don't really believe, or are even afraid, right? Ultimately, they don't fear the Heavenly Father up until he's to the point where he's not reversing his judgment and is coming upon them. Okay? Verse 4, for thus saith the Lord Yahweh unto the house of Israel, seek ye me, and ye shall live. Right? So if you seek the Lord and you follow his ways, you'll live. You'll live a good life. You'll be good. The scriptures talk about blessings, right? So why is that such a hard thing to do? Verse 5, but seek not Bethel, nor enter into Gilgal, and pass not to Beersheba. And why is it mentioning that? Because these were locations in Israel where they had built altars and they were serving idols, right? They had shrines, different groves, and they were sacrificing onto different gods. So by the Lord saying, don't seek Bethel, don't go into Gilgal, don't pass to Beersheba, meaning don't partake in these, paganistic ways. For Gilgal shall surely go into captivity, right? So the people of Gilgal are going to be taken captive, and Bethel shall come to naught, right? So they're going to be reduced to nothing. And these are examples of the Lord saying, I'm going to bring judgment upon them. Okay, and if you don't seek me and you join hand in hand with them, you're going to be a partaker of that judgment as well. Verse 6, seek the Lord Yahweh, and ye shall live, lest he break out like fire in the house of Joseph, and devour it. So you notice that the subject here, the one who is being addressed here, is when it mentions the house of Joseph, is referring to the northern kingdom, right? It talks about O house of Israel. At this point, the kingdom has been split, right? You have the southern kingdom, and then you have the northern kingdom. So when it mentions house of Israel or Israel, in most cases here, similar to in the book of Kings, it's not referring to the whole entire nation, but more so, as it'll sometimes even mention Samaria, right? But more so the northern kingdom. So as the Lord is saying here, right, via the mouth of Amos, seek the Lord, right, and live, lest he break out like a fire. So like how you have a fire starts and it just devours everything in its path. That's how the judgment of the Lord is being likened. And there be none to quench it in Bethel, right? Meaning once the Lord breaks forth and brings that judgment, ain't no amount of firefighters are going to be able to put out that fire, which is to say, nobody would be able to deliver you. Ye who turn judgment to wormwood, and leave off righteousness in the earth. And wormwood is bitter. Okay, and so pretty much what they do is they turn judgment into something bitter, something that's not upheld, something that you don't even want to take hold of, right? One example is when you deal with the sons of Eli, Phinehas and Hophni. The scriptures say that they made Israel to abhor the offering of the Lord, right? Roughly paraphrasing, because they made it difficult for Israelites to come and do what the Lord asked us to do, right? Which is to say, when you bring the offering, you gotta seethe it and so on, and yet they're forcing them to do it the way that they liked it. Okay, so that's pretty much what they were doing here, right? When I say that, I mean they were making the ways of the Lord perverse, okay, to where it was undesirable to to live in the way of righteousness, right? To execute proper judgment and leave off righteousness in the earth, which is to say they regard it for nothing, right? They throw it to the ground somewhere with no regard for it. Seek him that maketh the 7 stars and Orion, and turneth the shadow of death into the morning. Now the Orion, right? Same thing, the 7 stars in Orion. If you look it up, it's pretty much a constellation. If you've ever heard of Orion's belt, right, you'll see it's a constellation. Let me see if there's some information here on it. All right, let's see what it says over here. Orion is a prominent set of stars visible during winter in the northern celestial hemisphere. It is one of the 88 modern constellations. It was among the 48 constellations listed by the 2nd century astronomer Ptolemy. Cool. It is named after a hunter in Greek mythology, that is to say Orion. Orion is most prominent during winter evenings in the northern hemisphere, as are 5 other constellations that have 5 stars in the winter hexagon asterism. Orion's 2 brightest stars, Rigel and Betelgeuse, are both among the brightest stars in the night sky. And yeah, and then it goes on to basically the shape that it makes. I think it's like 7 points or so that make like an hourglass shape, as you can see here. And then there's like the 3 in the middle that form what they call the belt. So you can see here, there's a couple there, and then that's the belt right there, Orion's belt. So in other words, the stars, the constellation. So here, as it says, right, seek him, which is the Most High, right, that maketh the 7 stars and Orion, and turneth the shadow of death into the morning. Okay, which is to say, in the metaphorical sense, being able to deliver you, right, from like a death, but also um, the creator of day and night, so to speak. Okay, so the shadow of death into morning, right, and then the reverse, right, and maketh the day dark with night, and calleth for the waters of the sea, and poureth them out upon the face of the earth. The Lord Yahweh is his name. Okay, now this process here, right, of calling the waters from the sea and pouring it out upon the earth, you can imagine two main ways where this would happen, right? One would be through rain, right, where the process of evaporation, right, and so on. It's not just on land, but also from the waters of the sea, and eventually they form the clouds, and then rain comes down, right? But you also have another case, which when you look into the word here, um, because remember, this is a Amos is basically um, describing traits, right, or feats of the Lord to describe the Lord, right, as to why you should seek Him. So when you look here at the word porth, right, he calleth the waters of the sea, and porth, the word there's what's that? Pak, shapak. Um, it says here to pour out, to shed, to pour out anger or heart, figuratively, to shed, to pour out, right? And so one other, right, to spill forth. So another scenario you can imagine that's not rain is like floods, right? Floods, tsunamis, and so on and so forth. The Most High is behind all of those. Okay, and so as Amos is saying here, seek the Lord, right? The one who can do this, and he can do that, and he can do this. The Lord Yahweh is his name, that strengtheneth the spoiled against the strong, so that the spoiled shall come against the fortress. And really what this means is the Most High, right? He is the one that strengthens calamity, destruction, or havoc, or wreaks havoc, let's say, against the strong, against those that are perceived as mighty and strong, right? He very easily humbles them and brings them down, as it says, so that the spoiled shall come against the fortress. Now, the word spoiled here is shad, which means havoc, violence, destruction, devastation, ruin. Okay, so when it says that he strengthens the spoiled, all right, what it means is that he strengthens or musters up that destruction against the strong, and that destruction comes against their fortresses, right? Meaning even unto their defenses, those are also rendered useless, really, before the destruction of the Lord. Verse 10, they hate him that rebuketh in the gate, and they abhor him that speaketh uprightly. And that's Amos saying that because he is noting in particular, right? Let's go into the word gate here. But he's noting in particular the behavior of Israel when they hear that rebuke or that correction, even though they know they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing. So the definition I'm looking for here is this one right here, right? There are a couple of other definitions. But this one right here says, at the gates of cities, courts of justice were frequently held, and hence judges of the gate are spoken of in these precepts. At the gates, prophets also frequently delivered their messages. Criminals were punished without the gates. By the gates of righteousness, we are probably to understand those of the temple. So you get the point here, right? It was like a public area where you would have, certain judgments would be cast. People would be there, right? It was a public area, and so when the prophets would give their message, I think in Proverbs the first chapter it talks about that, right? Wisdom crieth without; she uttereth her voice in the streets. That's the common area where a lot of people would be, and then they would hear that message. So that's why it says here they hate him that rebuketh in the gate, which is because they don't like being told that the things they're doing are wrong, even though they know that it's wrong, because it messes with their conscience. Verse 11, for as much, therefore, as your treading is upon the poor, and ye take from him burdens of wheat, which is to say that they, through unjust means, they take away from the poor, right? Taxation and fines and all of these things, right? Whether it be in payments of wheat, right, or crops or food or whatever the case is. And as we've seen, that's also a recurring theme, right? That um wicked judgment, right? Not upright judgment, and the taking advantage of the poor, the less fortunate, right? So that the those that were at the top, the higher ups, would live more comfortably at the expense of their fellow Israelites. Ye have built houses of hewn stone, but ye shall not dwell in them. So the Lord is saying here, because of all this wickedness you've been doing in your oppression of the poor, your worshiping of idols, your disobedience, yeah, you have these nice houses you've built, but you're not going to dwell in those, right? Those are not going to be your resting place. Well, now, it doesn't mean that the second they built it, they would never step foot in there. But what it means is that you're not going to get to really enjoy that as your habitation because of the judgment the Lord is about to bring. Ye have planted pleasant vineyards, but ye shall not drink the wine of them. Same concept. For I know your manifold transgressions and your mighty sins. They afflict the just, they take a bribe, and they turn aside the poor in the gate from their right. So the gate, once again, being a place where you could even have situations judged. They would, as it says, turn aside the poor in the gate from their right, meaning they as we read here, they afflict the just, right? They take a bribe. So they're perverting judgment, right? And if at the gate is where, matters would be brought publicly and judged, you can imagine some of these judges here taking bribes or for whatever reason it is, perverting the right judgment and not and doing something that's maybe not in the favor of who it should be, right? Because they're now being taken, uh, bribes. Verse 13, therefore the prudent shall keep silence in that time, for it is an evil time. And there's a similar precept on that, meaning when that judgment comes, those that are prudent, right, they're not going to have anything to say. They're not going to jump in the way trying to justify anybody, because it's going to be a time of some serious evil. Seek God and not evil, that ye may live. And so the Lord Yahweh, the God of hosts, shall be with you as ye have spoken. Right? So you proclaim that God is with you, but you're not doing the things that are going to draw the Most High near unto you. So start doing those things that you may actually have the Lord with you as you proclaim. And you notice the Lord, right? Amos will say the things that you're doing wrong. He'll say the judgments the Lord is going to bring, but he also goes back to the recurring message of turn back and seek the Lord. Turn back and seek the Lord. Verse 15, hate the evil and love the good, and establish judgment in the gate, right? Righteous judgment, proper judgment. It may be that the Lord Yahweh, God of hosts, will be gracious unto the remnant of Joseph. So you may still have a chance, right, at the Lord having mercy upon you. If you turn from your wicked ways now and start establishing righteous judgment. See, so keep this in mind, right, that as where you had the southern kingdom, the majority, go into captivity on slave ships and they suffered a lot of atrocities. You also had the northern kingdom here in the Americas suffering a lot of atrocities at the hands of Esau. But keep in mind that they weren't innocent, okay? It's not that they were innocent, because remember, the scriptures say the Most High required for that which is past. Verse 16, therefore the Lord Yahweh, the God of hosts, the Lord saith thus, wailing shall be in all streets, and they shall say in all the highways, alas, alas. And they shall call the husbandmen to mourning, and such as are skillful of lamentation to wailing. The skillful of lamentation are professional mourners, right? People that you hire at funerals to come in and cry for that energy, right? So the emphasis or the point being made here is the time is coming, right, where it's not going to be joy and laughter in the streets. It's going to be mourning. Even the husbandmen, the farmers are going to be mourning. In all vineyards shall be wailing, for I will pass through thee, saith the Lord. So I'm going to ruin your crops. I'm going to ruin your vineyards. I'm going to bring judgment upon you. You're going to lose everything you have. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. So now we see that Amos starts to now speak concerning the day of the Lord, which we know prophetically, right? That day of the Lord is ultimately going to be in this time. Okay. But even at that time, to those living at that time, that would be a day of visitation of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai upon them, but it would be in a form of judgment. Okay. But the true day of the Lord is going to happen now. And even this message being applicable to today, a lot of people today that don't truly serve the Lord and don't even really understand what the Lord is coming to do speak as though they actually desire the day of the Lord. And so that's why Amos says here, woe unto you. What end is it for you? What benefit are you going to gain from it? Because it's not what you expect it to be. The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. It's going to be a day of a lot of destruction. As if a man did flee from a lion and a bear met him, or went into the house and leaned his hand on the wall and a serpent bit him. And this is to say it's like inescapable judgment, right? You fleeing from a lion and being met by a bear. Well, you might find yourself in that situation literally, but it's metaphorical, right? It's to represent one dangerous situation that you narrowly escape to run right into another, that you narrowly escape that, and just when you think you've gotten away, you get caught with something you don't see coming, which is that snake or that serpent biting you. So either way it goes, you're going to get got. Shall not the day of the Lord be darkness and not light, even very dark and no brightness in it? I despise your feast days, and I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. Though ye offer me burnt offerings and your meat offerings, I will not accept them. Neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat beasts. So imagine this, right? Imagine if you had, like, your spouse goes and commits adultery, right? She goes out and she's unloyal to you. And then she comes home and tries to come and lay up on you and be all affectionate to you. You're not going to appreciate that. You're not going to like that. You're going to say, yo, hell no, right? So imagine that, right? You go and serve idols. You go and do everything the Lord says don't do, and then you come and try to keep certain feast days onto the Lord. You try and do sacrifices onto the Lord. Of course, He's not going to accept that. Of course, it's not going to be savoring a good scent or good smell to Him. Just like if your woman is all upon you and you know she's good, that's love. But if she goes and goes on an all girls trip to Miami and then comes back and you find out she committed adultery and then she's trying to lay upon you, it ain't all good and it's not love, right? Verse 22, though ye offer me burnt offerings and your meat offerings, I will not accept them. Neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat beasts. Take thou away from me the noise of thy songs, for I will not hear the melody of thy viols, right? It doesn't sound good to me, okay, because you're doing it in wickedness, and I don't want that dirty, defiled, disgusting thing. What I do want, right, verse 24, but let judgment run down as waters, and righteousness as a mighty stream, right? So judgment, like as if you had an overflow or breaking of a dam, and just the waters just right, running over. That's what the Lord is saying here. Bring that judgment. Verse 25, have ye offered unto me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Israel? But ye have borne the tabernacle of Moloch, and Chion, your images, right, your idols, the star of your God, which ye made to yourselves. So the Lord is saying, even going back to the wilderness, guess what? I'm the one who delivered you. I'm the one who kept you alive and preserved you. And meanwhile, what were you doing? Right? You were serving other gods. You were provoking me in the wilderness. Go back and read the Torah, and read how many times the Lord had brought a plague or almost, did away with the nation because of their iniquities, because of other idols. Verse 27, therefore will I cause you to go into captivity beyond Damascus, right, which is past Syria, and i.e. this would be going into Assyria, right, as we see later on in the timeline in history, the Assyrians come and end up taking the northern kingdom captive. Saith the Lord Yahweh, whose name is the God of hosts. And that brings us to the end of the book of Amos, the 5th chapter. So as you can see here, the theme here is, judgment, right, that's coming because of not only the iniquity, but the stiff-necked ways of Israel, okay, of the northern kingdom here, and the wickedness that they were doing nonstop. So with that, Lord willing, you were edified. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.